Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. This is Todd with Industrial Comfort. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these really cool Chevron Spline box joints. Now, unlike most splines that are intended to increase the structural rigidity of your box corners, these are purely decorative. They will, however, make your projects look pretty awesome. Let me show you how I did it.
Now, as I've mentioned in other spline joint videos, once you determine the number of splines that you'd like, you then divide the width of your workpiece by the number of splines plus 1. So I'm looking for 6 splines in this 3.5 inch wide piece of wood. So I'm going to divide 3.5 by 7, which is going to give me a 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do is mark out in 1/2 inch gradations all the way down the workpiece. Okay, and then I'm going to take my speed square and I'm going to mark those lines. Now I'm only going to do this on one board because I am going to clamp the two pieces together. Okay, what I'm going to do now is effectively make a grid with squares in it. And so the idea here is that I never want to have the 45-degree miter cut, which is what I'm going to use in this case for these particular chevrons, to cut too far over such that you're actually snipping the end of this corner off. So what I'm going to do is measure a 1/2 inch down. Again, I'm going to use my speed square here and just draw a corresponding line across. Essentially, we now have a series of boxes. And so what the concept here is that your 45-degree cuts are going to go in each one of these boxes. Okay? And we're going to line it up on the saw here and make our cuts.
Okay, I've got my blade set to 45 degrees. What I want to do now is bring the height of the blade here to the top line of the grid that we drew. So I'm going to lower this just a tad, and then what we'll do is get our miter slide set up and start preparing to make the cuts. Okay, for the next step here, what I'm going to do is take these two boards, I'm going to line them up, and then I'm going to clamp them in place before we align them to start making the cuts. So I'm going to use one clamp to get everything aligned like this, left to right. Then I'm going to use another clamp just to secure everything from the top. Probably a bit overkill, but rather be safe than sorry. So now what I'm going to do is align this so that it's, as far as I can tell, aligned such that we're going to make a cut through from one corner to the other, and we'll start making our cuts. With the cuts now made, I'm going to take the clamps off and we're going to go ahead and cut the splines. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you can fast forward through this part as it's the same process I've used before. Now, these cuts didn't end up coming out exactly as I wanted them. As you can see, I kind of missed on some of the grids, but for this example, it'll be fine. And we'll go ahead, make the splines, and then we'll fit them in place and glue them up. Now, in order to cut the splines, I'm going to take the wood that I'm going to be using for the splines and put it up against the fence, and I'm going to do what I call my sacrificial cut. This is where I make a cut so that I know exactly where my reference point is on the board. Now, the easiest way to do that is to set the gauge on your fence to a quarter, half, three-quarter, or even number. That way, when you go to move the fence for each successive cut to create your splines, you're only moving in quarter-inch increments, and it just makes it easier for measurement purposes. Now, I say quarter-inch for the purpose that you want an 1/8 inch of material for your splines. Now, the kerf, or the width of the blade, is that same amount. So you effectively want to double that amount from 1/8 to a quarter-inch to account for the material that's going to be moved. And then you're going to be moving over a quarter-inch every time thereafter in order to get another spline. So in this case, I want to make sure that I am aligned to the grain, so I'm going to move this over to 5 1/4. I'm going to make my sacrificial cut, and then I'll go ahead and make each successive cut thereafter. So I took the spline material over to my bandsaw and I just cut up into a bunch of little pieces. And now I'll go ahead and glue these splines into place. The glue has now dried in these splines. So what you're going to want to do is line the two pieces of wood up that are going to create your corner, and make sure that the splines are aligned in the same direction. I'm then going to butterfly it, and I'm going to use a pencil to mark the inside of the corner. And what I'm going to do is take my random orbital sander and I'm going to knock down this extra wood. Now I'm doing this because once we assemble a joint, we're not going to be able to clean up the insides of these corners. Now the other thing I want you to do is mark a 45-degree miter. It doesn't have to be exact because you can come back with your speed square and fix this. And just notate which direction you're going to need to cut, because the last thing that you want to do is cut the miter going the wrong direction, like I did earlier, and you're going to end up with a joint that's simply a spline going in a single direction instead of one creating a chevron. So let's get this sanded and then we'll go ahead and make the cuts. Okay, before sanding, I made some rough marks where we're going to cut our 45-degree angles. For the corner, I'm just going to use a speed square to make a more precise line. And we'll make our cuts.
The next step is to glue up. Now I like to sort of pre-fit this into the clamp before I put the glue on. Put in, tighten up, just make sure again that your joint and your splines are in the right direction. We'll tighten this up and let it dry.
With the glue now set in this corner joint, I'm going to take my random orbital sander and knock down the extra material. Then we'll put a finish on and we'll be done.
This is always my favorite part, where we apply the finish and bring the color to life.
As you can see, these Chevron Spline box joints came out really cool, and they're sure to enhance the look of any project that uses them. Now, the one thing that I didn't mention earlier that I'll mention now is in the event that your cuts or your chevrons did not come out symmetrical, you can always use your table saw to just remove any extra material from either side to make more symmetry if needed. I hope you found this project helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.